What was the secret sauce behind John Candy's comedy genius? Well, the new biography, here it is right here, John Candy, A Life in Comedy, reveals the magic behind the legendary Canadian.
And author Paul Myers is here to pull back the curtain. Welcome back to the Morning Show, Paul.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be back in my hometown.
Well, it is a pleasure to have you. And let's talk about this because everyone is, pulling back the curtain these days on John. And clearly it shows how we will never forget this man and how he touched us all. You were actually chatting with fellow Canadian Ryan Reynolds recently, who has a doc out. Actually, Morgan spoke to Ryan and all of them about this. Were you at all, because I know Ryan was a little bit intrepid, were you at all nervous about getting it right, getting the man right?
Yeah. I think of it as actually a solemn responsibility because you're telling the story not just to somebody that you were a fan of, but so many people had a connection to him, whether they knew him or not. But I especially wanted to honor the family who really knew him. And it's really a responsibility. And you go into this with no agenda. You're not trying to tell the story before you know the story. And then you really want to get the tone right. You want to balance it. And I want to make sure I put a lot of details in here. And then you have to sort of take out some details because there's just you can't get it all. So I took the stuff that's all relevant to who was John Candy and why do we still miss him 31 years later?
Mm-hmm. Let's answer that question, or try to. Why do we still miss John Candy? I think, his loss is so profound, and I think for a couple of reasons. One is it really took a lot of us by surprise, obviously. But secondly, just his comedy, not only was he funny, but I also think, Paul, there was a humanity behind his comedy and every character he played, whether it be on the big screen or on SCTV.
Absolutely. Empathy, humanity, vulnerability. He was a big man, but he was a vulnerable man, and there was something beautiful about that. He didn't have, he had a lot of non-toxic masculinity. It's the opposite of that. He was like, I can be a gentle giant and I can care about you. And he also didn't suffer fools. So you didn't mess with him and you didn't mess with anyone that he liked, or anyone he saw being wronged.
Mm-hmm. But he also didn't even have to know you. I don't think you mentioned this story in the book. You have so many stories, and so many details. But one, I don't think you mentioned, but it's a neat one to mention, is that when your brother was starting off, didn't he take the time?
It is actually in the book.
Oh, my bad. It's there. You can read more about it.
Because I don't put Mike in anything unless it's really supposed to be there, because I'm not that guy. But Mike. The whole reason Mike got into comedy, my brother is Mike Myers. We figured that out, right?
What?
So he goes to see a live performance, a public appearance. John Candy waits at the stage door, and Mike wanted to get into comedy. He's like 16, and he says, "Excuse me, Mr. Candy, how do I get into comedy?" And anyone could have answered that question any different way. Like, some people could be really bad about it, but John gave him this advice: go to Second City. They have workshops. Learn about comedy. If you like it, you'll stay with it. If you're not into it, you'll find out early and do something else with your life. And if you love it, you might still not make it, but you could be working at something you love, and that's great. And that's great advice to give anyone about any career, right? Surgeon or whatever. And Mike went on to success, and then a few years later, after the movie Wayne's World came out, John Candy's in a restaurant, and his buddy Dave says, Mike's buddy Dave says, "Go over and say hi to John and tell him you took the advice." And Mike says, "He won't know who I am." Candy walks across the floor with that Uncle Buck hand extended and says, "Hey, Mike, saw Wayne's World, congratulations." So does that ever happen? Like, that is an amazing story that really happened. So of course it's in the book, but I know there's a lot of stories in the book. I'm almost touched that you didn't remember the Mike story.
But, it is amazing, and it speaks to what we were talking about earlier, John's humanity and who he was as a man and as a person. And as you mentioned, there are many stories in this book right here. John Candy, A Life in Comedy. It is available right now in bookstores. Paul, it's great to see you, and thank you for coming by this morning.
Thank you, and thank you.
Thank you.